Okay, so ready to dive into Mel Robbins's Let Them theory.
Absolutely.
Awesome. You sent over some excerpts from her book
Yes,
and a
sir.
few other articles.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what we can pull out of this in about 8 minutes.
Sounds good.
Get to the heart of letting go and taking control.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting is that she really weaves her personal story throughout it.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just theoretical. It's
Well,
rooted in like her own experience of
yeah.
hitting rock bottom, facing debt, and feeling stuck.
Yeah, it's like she's saying, hey, I've been there.
Totally.
So before we jump into the Let Them theory itself,
Okay.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about this 5-second rule
Yes.
that she's known for. Is that connected at all?
Definitely. That's where it all started.
Okay.
Think of those moments when
Yeah.
you know what you should do,
Mm-hmm.
but you just can't seem to make yourself do it.
Right.
That's where the 5-second rule comes in. It's like a tool to interrupt that hesitation, that overthinking, and just take action.
Oh, interesting.
She literally used a countdown, like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Wow.
to push herself out of her comfort zone.
There's like a mental trick.
Yeah.
To break free from procrastination.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it worked for her in a big way. Like she tackled those bills,
Wow.
she networked for new opportunities, all by using this simple 5-second countdown to take those first steps.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that
Yeah.
by sharing this rule with others, through her TEDx talk and her writing, she actually kind of ended up helping herself even more.
You mean by helping others, she solidified her own
Yeah,
commitment to the idea.
precisely.
Got it.
And that's actually where the let them theory comes in.
Okay.
It builds upon the 5-second rule,
Okay.
but it tackles this much broader challenge,
Okay.
which is that human tendency to try and control things we simply can't. Like other people's actions, opinions, feelings, and how that just drains us and keeps us from really living the life we want.
Okay, so how does the let them theory actually work?
Yeah.
It's not like we could just snap our fingers and stop
Right.
caring what others think, right?
Right. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending you don't care.
Got it.
It's about a fundamental shift in perspective.
Okay.
Mel breaks it down into 2 parts.
Okay.
Let them and let me.
Yeah.
It's about accepting what you can't control
Yeah.
and focusing on what you can.
Okay.
So like let them is about accepting that your coworker's going to be late again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not about condoning their behavior. It's
Right.
about acknowledging that
Yeah.
you can't force them to change.
Right.
You're releasing that need to control them,
Yeah.
which frees you up to focus on the let me part.
Which would be choosing how I respond
Yeah.
to that perpetually late coworker.
Precisely.
Okay.
Let me take a deep breath.
Calm down and decide on a more productive response instead of getting all worked up and letting it ruin my morning.
It's about choosing empowerment over frustration,
Totally.
even in those small everyday moments.
Yes.
I'm starting to see how this could be incredibly helpful.
And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
This concept isn't new.
Oh, really?
Elle actually points out
Okay.
that it's rooted in ancient philosophies like Stoicism. It's about focusing on what's within your control,
Yeah.
which, as it turns out, is a lot more than we often realize.
Okay, I'm definitely getting this let go to take control vibe.
Yes.
So besides annoying coworkers,
Yeah.
where else does this let them theory come into play?
Well, Mel applies it to a wide range of situations, from stress management to relationships to overcoming the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
But maybe one of the most powerful examples is how she uses it to deal with stress.
Okay, stress is a universal experience.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
She brings in Dr. Aditi Nerurkar,
Okay.
who is a Harvard physician who specializes in stress.
Mhm.
And Dr. Nerurkar explains that stress is more than just feeling tense.
Okay.
It's actually a physiological state
Oh, wow.
that literally impairs the prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
that part of your brain responsible for decision-making and logic.
So when we're stressed, we're not exactly thinking clearly.
Exactly. We're in survival mode.
Wow.
So imagine you're facing a stressful situation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a looming deadline at work or a family conflict.
Right.
Let them be the stressor. You can't control the deadline or the conflict, right?
Right.
But you can control how you respond.
So it's like saying let them be the storm.
Yes.
And let me decide whether I'm going to get swept away by it
Yeah.
or find shelter and ride it out.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your experience,
Right.
even in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
It's about choosing a response that empowers you,
Right.
rather than letting the situation control you.
This is really resonating with me.
Yeah.
I can see how this shift in perspective could make a huge difference in how we experience those everyday stressors.
Totally.
So is this all about just accepting everything
That's a great question.
and not trying to change anything?
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
doesn't sound very proactive.
Mel addresses that directly.
Oh,
Let them theory is not about passivity.
okay.
It's not about giving up on what you want
Right.
or resigning yourself to a life you're not happy with.
Okay.
It's actually about creating the space
Got it.
to make real meaningful change.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do you reconcile
Yeah.
acceptance with taking action?
Right.
How do you let them and let me create change?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay,
And that's where Mel starts to dive into some really practical applications of the let them theory.
perfect.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back to unpack those applications in the next segment. Okay, so we're back and ready to dig into how we can actually apply this let them theory to create change.
Okay.
You mentioned that Mel Robbins gets into some practical strategies.
Yes.
Where do we start?
Well, one area that she tackles is the fear of judgment.
Okay.
You know, that feeling of holding back because
Right.
you're worried about what others might think. Mel has a great anecdote about struggling with this herself, especially when it came to social media.
Totally relatable.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there second-guessing ourselves before hitting post, wondering if people will judge us for our vacation pics or opinions or whatever it is.
And Mel realized she was spending way too much time trying to craft this like perfect image online, and it was paralyzing her.
Right.
She was giving away her power to other people's potential judgments.
So how did she break free from that?
Yeah.
Did she just start posting whatever she wanted,
Well,
regardless of what anyone thought?
but not quite. It was more about shifting her focus.
Okay.
She realized that, like, let them have their opinions. She couldn't control what people thought.
Right.
And trying to please everyone was just a recipe for misery.
So it's more about accepting that you can't control perceptions and focusing on what feels authentic to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
The let me in that situation was about giving herself permission to post what she wanted, what aligned with her values and her goals.
Okay.
And she makes a really important point.
Yeah.
You will never please everyone.
Right.
So why exhaust yourself trying?
Okay, that's a liberating thought.
Yes.
And it makes me think about relationships. Like, what if you're in a relationship where you and your partner have different visions for the future?
Ah, yes. The classic compatibility conundrum.
Right.
Mel doesn't shy away from that at all.
Okay.
In fact, she brings in the research of John and Julie Gottman, who are like the relationship gurus.
Didn't they study couples for decades?
They did.
Oh.
And their findings are pretty eye-opening.
Okay.
They found that 69%
Wow.
of relationship problems are not resolvable.
Okay, that's a bit daunting.
Right.
Does that mean most relationships are doomed?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It means acceptance is key.
Right.
And that's where the let them theory can be so powerful.
Okay.
It's not about trying to change your partner or force them into a mold that doesn't fit.
So let them have their dreams and desires, even if they don't perfectly align with mine.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this is where the let me becomes crucial.
Right.
Let me decide if I can truly accept that Mel poses this thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Will I regret breaking up more than I'll regret the compromise?
Wow. That's getting to the heart of it.
Right.
It's about choosing what kind of heartbreak you can live with. Because let's be honest, relationships require compromises.
Yes.
It's about figuring out what you're truly willing to sacrifice.
Exactly. And that requires a lot of self-awareness. Mel encourages us to really examine our values, our non-negotiables, and just be honest with ourselves about what we can and can't live with.
And this applies to all sorts of relationships, right? Not just romantic ones.
Think about family dynamics, friendships, even work relationships.
Right.
We often fall into that trap of trying to control other people's behavior, their choices, even their emotions.
Oh, I know that all too well.
Right.
Like trying to get my sister to stop stressing about every little thing.
Totally.
It's exhausting for both of us.
And that's a perfect example of where the let them theory can help.
Okay.
You can't control your sister's anxiety, right? But you can control how you respond to it.
Okay.
You can let her have her feelings and let yourself set boundaries, protect your energy, and choose a response that feels supportive without enabling her anxiety.
So it's not about being cold or uncaring.
No.
It's about recognizing that we can't fix other people's problems for them.
Right. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is to step back and let them learn from their own experiences, even if it's messy or uncomfortable.
So how do we actually do that?
Yeah, that's the question.
Like, how do we stop ourselves from falling back into those old patterns of trying to control everything and everyone?
Mel offers some really practical tools and techniques for shifting our mindset and our behavior.
Right.
She talks about things like the 5 whys technique for getting to the root of our frustration and the ABC loop for influencing change without controlling others.
Yeah. Okay, I'm definitely intrigued.
Yes.
Tell me more about these techniques.
Well, the 5 whys is a great way to uncover the real reason behind our frustration. Yeah. Let's say you're constantly annoyed by your partner's messy habits.
Right.
You keep nagging them to clean up, but it never seems to work.
Right.
The 5 whys prompts you to ask yourself,
okay,
why does this bother me?
Right.
And then you keep asking why.
Okay.
To each answer until you get to the root of it.
So it's like peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the core of the issue.
Yes.
Oh.
And what you might discover is that it's not really about the mess itself, but about your need for control.
Oh, interesting.
Your desire for things to be a certain way.
And once you understand that,
right,
you can start to address the real issue, which is your own need for control.
Right.
Okay.
And that's where the ABC loop comes in.
Right.
It's a 3-step process for influencing change without resorting to control tactics.
Okay, break it down for me.
Okay.
What does ABC stand for?
It stands for apologize, back off, and celebrate.
Okay.
First, you apologize for any past pressure you've put on the other person.
Got it.
Then you back off.
Okay.
You give them space to make their own choices.
Right.
Without nagging or guilt trips.
So no more passive-aggressive sticky notes about the dirty dishes.
Exactly. And finally, you celebrate any progress they make, no matter how small.
That's good.
It's about positive reinforcement.
Got it.
Focusing on the good instead of constantly pointing out the negative.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's like we're training ourselves to focus on rather than what's not.
Yes. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Mel emphasizes that.
Okay.
While you're doing all of this, apologizing, backing off, celebrating, you're also modeling the behavior you want to see. So if you want your partner to be tidier, you can be tidy yourself.
Okay.
You can create a peaceful and organized environment, and that can have a subtle but powerful influence on them.
Okay, so it's not about being a hypocrite.
No.
It's about leading by example.
Exactly.
I could definitely see how this approach would be more effective and less stressful than constantly trying to control someone else.
And you know what's really cool?
What's that?
Mel brings in Dr. Tali Sharot, who is a neuroscientist who explains that celebrating progress actually creates a positive feedback loop in the brain.
So by acknowledging and celebrating those small wins, we're actually rewiring our brains for success.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the same goes for the person whose behavior we're trying to influence by celebrating their progress.
Yeah.
We're helping them to associate positive feelings with the change, which makes them more likely to repeat the desired behavior.
This is so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like we're using the power of positive reinforcement to create lasting change.
And ultimately, that's what the let them theory is all about, creating a more positive, empowering dynamic in our relationships.
I'm starting to see how this can apply to so many areas of life.
Yes.
But before we wrap up this segment, I want to touch on one more thing. Mel talks about adult friendships.
Yes.
This is something I personally struggle with.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of our listeners do too.
It's a common challenge.
Yeah.
Mel calls it the great scattering.
Oh, interesting.
That shift from the built-in social structure of school and college to the more fragmented, unpredictable world of adult friendships.
Yes, it's like everyone's lives are going in different directions, moving, getting married, having kids, and it's harder to maintain those close connections.
And it's easy to get caught up in feeling left out or resentful when friendships change.
Yeah, right.
But Mel encourages us to let them live their lives, make new connections, and let me focus on nurturing the friendships that I truly value.
So it's about taking ownership of my social life.
Exactly.
Not waiting for it to just happen.
Right. And it's about being proactive, reaching out,
Yeah.
making plans, being the one to say hello first.
Right.
Adult friendships require effort.
Right.
But when you put in that effort, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Okay, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
So we've covered stress, relationships, fear of judgment, even friendships.
Yes.
It sounds like the let them theory has the potential to transform pretty much every area of our lives.
It really does.
Wow.
And in the next segment, we'll explore some even deeper layers of the let them theory and how it can help us to overcome some of the biggest challenges we face in life.
Sounds good.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to dive even deeper into the let them theory with Mel Robbins.
All right, we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive into the let them theory. We've talked about letting go of control in relationships, managing stress, overcoming fear of judgment, even navigating those tricky waters of adult friendships. So what other gems has Mel Robbins packed into this idea?
Well, she tackles some pretty deep-seated human tendencies. Like comparison.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, that feeling of measuring ourselves against others and coming up short.
Like that saying, comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
Especially in the age of social media.
Yes.
It's so easy to get caught in that trap of looking at everyone's highlight reels and feeling inadequate.
Exactly. And Mel doesn't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
She acknowledges how pervasive and insidious comparison can be. She even brings in the work of Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's a cognitive neuroscientist, who emphasizes the power of our thoughts to shape our brains.
So if we're constantly comparing ourselves to others and feeling envious or insecure, we're actually reinforcing those negative neural pathways.
Precisely.
Wow.
It's like we're training our brains to focus on what we lack rather than what we have. But here's where the let them theory comes in. It's not about pretending those feelings of comparison don't exist. It's about recognizing them and choosing a different response.
So let them have their successes, their perfectly curated Instagram feeds, their seemingly perfect lives.
And let me focus on my own path. My own definition of success, my own unique journey. It's about shifting from a mindset of scarcity. You know, that feeling of there not being enough to go around to a mindset of abundance, and that belief that there's enough success, happiness, and fulfillment for everyone.
So it's not a zero-sum game. Someone else's win doesn't have to equal my loss.
Exactly. And Mel takes it the step further. She actually encourages us to use other people's successes as inspiration, as a roadmap for what's possible. Instead of feeling envious, get curious. Learn from their example. Figure out what steps they took, what choices they made, and how you can apply those lessons to your own life.
That's such a powerful reframe.
It's
like turning jealousy into fuel for growth.
It is.
Wow.
And here's something really interesting. Mel talks about the importance of recognizing when we're feeling triggered by someone else's success, because that can actually be a sign that we're on the right track.
You mean like if I'm feeling envious of someone who just landed their dream job, it might be a sign that I'm actually yearning for a more fulfilling career myself.
Exactly. It's like a wake-up call. A reminder that you have desires or ambitions that you haven't fully tapped into yet. So let them be your catalyst for action. And let me use that energy to create something amazing in my own life.
This is so inspiring. It's like Mel is giving us permission to stop holding ourselves back and to really go after what we want.
She is, and she reminds us that creating the life we want doesn't require some superhuman level of talent or luck. It's about consistency, hard work, and the willingness to keep showing up even when it's challenging.
So it's about taking those small steps every day, those 5-second decisions that ultimately lead to big transformations.
Exactly. And it all circles back to the core of the let them theory, letting go of what we can't control and embracing what we can. Our choices, our actions, our responses.
That's where our true power lies.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I have a whole new framework for approaching challenges and creating the life I want.
It's really about taking ownership of our experience. And recognizing that we have more control than we often realize.
Absolutely.
It's not about being passive or giving up. It's about choosing empowerment over frustration, acceptance over resistance, and action over inertia.
So for you listening, what one thing will you let go of trying to control this week? And what will you let yourself do instead? Keep that question in mind as you navigate the days ahead.
Yeah.
And remember, the power to create change lies within you.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep diving deep.